This is Craig. I play for DU Football. I know both Sams personally. I don't even listen to this fucking show. This is the DU Football Show.
You know,
that's a theme.
It's good to know humility has won out. Up is down. Everything is right. Fucking the dude that did the sermon on the fucking hill kicks a game-winning field goal. The two teams are in the Super Bowl that nobody fucking wants. Holland's scoring again. City's never getting charged. We're all fucked. Let's start the show.
Born in the land of Bowie, Maryland. Bred to be a fan of fucking Everton. Punch you in the eye and drink your rye. Sam Houston. Sam Houston. Arsenal fans have another Sam. AKA the fucking Gooner Graham. Son of the Lord. Let's trade in shorts. Sam Graham. Sam Graham.
Hello and welcome to the DU Football Show, a completely biased recap of the English Premier League as told by three common American schmucks. I am your host, Sam Houston, and due to some scheduling conflicts, we're going across the internets today. Not that I think that this one guest could jump on a plane from Denver and fly all the fucking way out here. 1/3 of the Blue Frontier pod, and of course, the head conductor of the Optimism train, our good buddy Shan. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Sam. I really appreciate the invite and really excited to talk about some Premier League today.
Well, you know, you do a show where all you do is talk about Everton, and now you actually get to talk about the rest of the league.
I know. I'm excited. I feel like a bird that can flap its wings. So,
and good news is our game sucks, so there really isn't much to talk about. And of course, remember, Mel, I always have options. My second wife, the woman that discovered her sexuality and became a Villa supporter, our good friend Nicole. Cole, how you doing, darling?
Hi, I'm doing all right. I was just saying earlier, it's been a week already, only Monday, but that's okay. I'm here. I'm ready to talk about Premier League because it is the one bright spot.
Hey, Cole. You know what my advice is? You can't sober up if you always stay drunk.
Wise words, Mel.
We're recording at the DU Public House just outside the nation's capital. You can check us out wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, streaming live every single Monday night. Should you want to chat with us, there is many ways that you can. Producer Mel, tell the good people how they can get in touch.
Well, you can send us in an email at dufootballshow@gmail.com, or you can send us in a message on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Just don't do it on Twitch or Kick because we ain't checking those.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And that would be what? The handle?
At dufootballshow.com.
Atta girl. You always like to try.
Everything's at DU Football Show. The website. Guess what the website is?
Yeah, DU Football Show.
dufootballshow.com.
Right.
Guess what the Facebook is?
They call it a call to action because you continuously repeat it, make it repetitive. So
now,
it stays in the listener's brain
Sam,
so they know to go to these things. Yes.
Guess what the t-shirt shop is?
What's that?
DU Drip Shack.
Yeah, it is. Sam and myself both work in the wine and spirit industry and both have a deep, passionate love for all things distilled spirits. So as the red-blooded Americans we are, we vow to have a drink in our hand throughout this show and every single show. Whisky Advocates Top 20 list continues. We are on to number 13. Producer Mel, tell us what we're drinking tonight.
All right. Lucky number 13 is Knob Creek Bourbon and Rye. It has a panel rating of 93. This is a blended American. Now, Knob Creek's blend of 7-year-old rye and 9-year-old bourbon, that would be a 70-30 mix, leads with aromas of bright rye spice and black pepper with vanilla, caramel, and peach candies adding the depth. The nose has complexity with a wood strain and tobacco becoming more notable in time. And on the palate, the bourbon's influence on the blend is more prominent with a peppery spice balanced with caramel apples, butterscotch, and berries. Now, whether it's tame enough but bottle proof, adding water brings out caramelized notes and barbecue spices. On the shelf, they're telling me this is $45 and it is 56.5%.
Mm-hmm. Everything you want out of bourbon and everything you want out of rye married together. precisely what it is.
Dave would have liked this.
This very much an ode to a whiskey that High West is very well known for called Boo Rye.
Mm-hmm.
Now theirs is 50-50, where this is 70-30.
Yeah.
But you get all the sweet, happy, desserty, vanilla, caramel kind of things that you want from bourbon. But then you get that big black pepper, minty, eucalyptus kind of spice to the back end that comes through in the rye.
Yeah, 30% bourbon. I was like, it's the rye definitely dominates, but it should.
And of course, this is considered to be an American whiskey because remember, you have the purview of American whiskey, which is just oversees everything. From there, a bourbon, a rye, a wheat has to be at minimum of 51% of that predominant grain, be it corn, rye, or wheat. And then if it has to be aged in brand new American white oak. In this instance, you're taking what is rye whiskey classified as rye whiskey and what is bourbon classified as bourbon. But because you mix them together, you can't call it one or the other. You can't make it a predominant. So it's just referred to as American whiskey. It's one thing that if I had my way, I would want to see the TTB, Tax and Trade Bureau. That's who handles everything that's related for alcohol for us. Used to be the ATF. They had some image issues back in the 90s that didn't work out so well for them. So the TTB took that over. The thing that I would want is I would want there to be a category for things like this. Wyoming does something called an outrider, the Boo Rye, things of that nature. Campfire from High West.
Oh, I love Campfire.
I like to equate it to the category that got developed in Italian wine, which was called a Super Tuscan. And those were using traditional French / American type varietals. So doing Cabernets or Merlots and stuff like that, but they couldn't call it anything in Italy because it didn't come from that region and it wasn't the grape associated with that region. So it was essentially just table wine. Sassicaia cost $150 fucking a bottle. It shouldn't be called table wine. So they came up with a category called Super Tuscan that allowed that. I feel like American whiskey needs to get to that point, right? Because you're essentially saying this is the exact same thing as early times.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's what, because they're both just, quote, American whiskeys. And you're leaving it up to the consumer to read and make their own decisions and decide. But let's face it, most consumers are going to pay with their checkbook and not necessarily take the time to, read up on a brand. And they're just, be like, well, all things being equal, they're both American whiskeys. I'll take the cheap one, just what's going to happen. So love the whiskey. The whiskey is really, really good. What do you think, Mel? You like?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. I'm glad that the bourbon doesn't overtake and it still comes through. And it's got a little bit of a heat to it that makes you respect it a bit more.
Definitely get when they say barbecue smoke, when you give it a little water, I put it on a big cube, that definitely starts to shine through on it.
Yeah. The more it opens up, more flavors come out. You get a little bit more of the chard that hits the palate.
Very good. Well, producer Mel, what else should we always do?
I always feel like an NPR host when we get to this point.
Yeah, go for it.
The sweaty balls. And if you want to try my sweaty balls, email us. Oh no, be responsible in drinking. Always drink legally and responsibly. I confuse sweaty balls with the disclaimer.
There's this lane that you should stay.
I need to stay right there.
Remember,
ready?
You're the drunk Uber passenger. And there she goes. If you're not watching on the live stream, producer Mel just put up the DU Football Show logo and went, peace out, deuces, I am done. We open with a battle of heavyweights that have lost their way over the holidays. And this was supposed to be the comeback match. Well, at least for one of them. Manchester City 3, Chelsea 1. I would say, guys, right off the bat, going into this match, I think what I just said, everybody was thinking, because Chelsea haven't been losing a lot, but they've been drawing a ton of games they should be winning and have kind of fallen out of what was title contention. Right after Maresca went, we're not title contenders. Great. phew, right down the table. And then City, of course, it's been a nightmare for them. And since Erling decided to be all humble and shit, and then it all went sideways for him. Did it feel like it lived up to the hype? Ask you there first, Sean.
I think in the first moment it did, right? Because Chelsea scores pretty much right off the bat. You get the Uzbek kind of debut where he, has that terrible header, and then they almost go 2-0 up, right? Where they had that moment, and Nicholas Jackson once again finds a way to kind of screw up a chance in front of goal, which they could have went up 2-0, but then all of a sudden it's like City decide, oh wait, we still can be title contenders if we want to be. And so then they just have this onslaught where they're missing. It's almost like a Tom and Jerry skit where they're just missing chance after chance, and then finally they score, and it's 1-1, and if you're them, you're feeling pretty good, right, going into the half. And especially too, to your point, they dominated play after what Chelsea could have almost put the fear in them and going up 2-0. But yeah, Omar Marmoush looked so good. It just even Josko Gvardiol missed a lot of chances, but he was getting them. So it made you, if you were a City fan, I think you feel pretty good going into that half.
I was going to say, so obviously there were the two new signings here, Cole. We had the Uzbekistan kid, Kuzmanov, who had the bad header and then also got a yellow card a minute later. I was like, less than auspicious start for him there. But then on the other side, you have the Egyptian striker who came over from the Bundesliga, and Marmoush, who was just an absolute fucking madman. He was everywhere, wasn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, and to, I think the earlier point that Sean made, like you started watching this match and I saw Chelsea score early on and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I mean, no one's expecting them to run away with it, right? And I think even the commentator said this during the game, is like, we're not expecting a 1-1 game here. Like nobody is thinking that. And then as it goes on, they're trying to just hammer at the net. They're just trying to, get the goal in and nothing is happening. You're like, I think that maybe one or both of these teams have collectively gotten their shit together. And then the second half happens and you're like, nope, good feelings gone. No, I have no way, I don't have any skin in this game.
Right, of course.
But I did at a certain point just feel epically bad for Chelsea because it seemed like all of that momentum and all of the work that they had put in like, the first 20 minutes immediately like left the building. There was no hope.
So, Sean, here's a thought. You try to figure out what is it that made Chelsea slip? Because let's face it, they were punching above their weight at the start of the season. No one expected them to be there, and they were playing phenomenally. It can't be as easy as this team goes, as Cole Palmer goes, and they're just young. It can't be just that, but damn if it didn't feel like that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is I think they are a young team. I think as much fun as we make fun of them, right? They've actually gotten some parts of their recruitment right, and you kind of see that on the pitch. The one guy that I just cannot figure out, I think he's probably one of the most inconsistent keepers in the best and worst way, is Robert Sanchez. And obviously what happened in that second goal was just, completely terrible, because even if at worst case, right, he goes back to his net, it's not basically kind of that easy, and it's not an easy tap in by any means. I want to make that clear. Holland does a lot of work to get there. But yeah, to your point, I think they also have started to have some injuries, right? In terms of like that Caicedo-Enzo partnership, I think is done well. They also, I think, got a lot of production out of Madueke, like to start the season. Like he was kind of somebody that I really liked. Like really going into just too. He's tapered off. Yeah, he's really tapered off, and I just think you can't rely on. I mean, you kind of see it. It's a weird example. Wolves with Cunha, like Cole Palmer can only do so much for so long, right? He's an incredible talent. And also too, Nicholas Jackson, right? Like you look at that second chance, right? If he just kind of shoots it at the net, it's 2-0. And maybe that game's a little bit different, right? Where they probably can kind of go in with a little bit more of a defensive mindset, at least kind of absorb pressure and then maybe hit them on the counter. So, yeah, but it's also too, they are a young team, right? So you can like they did so well to start that I do actually agree to some extent. Like they probably were a year ahead in terms of being title contenders, but then to your point, they shouldn't have kind of this fall off right now that they have been, like losing to Ipswich and whatnot. They just have not looked like the same team, and they drew to Everton too, which of course, for them, not great.
Drew to Everton, drew Bournemouth. Now Bournemouth's playing out of their fucking
Sure.
minds right now, and we're going
Yeah.
to get on to them in the second segment. But they've had some matches where you're just scratching your head going, exactly what the hell? And it can't be as easy as just going, oh, they're young, they don't know any better. No, 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 no. These guys all come from decent programs where they were expected, especially you think of somebody like Concedo. He was the guy at Brighton. And that was right after Basuma left, and they just went, okay, team's yours now, go get him. And he was brilliant. Now, I think he's gotten a much harder rap than he probably deserves. Last year was very tough for him, but like you mentioned, his partnership this year with Enzo has been fantastic. That's really been what has kind of, I think, fixed that team as a whole. And it could be coaching. It could just be the way Maresca looked at it versus how coaches looked at it last year. I mean, that could just be what it is, but it's still a bit of a head scratcher that they just can't seem to get out of their own way. And they love to give away leads. God, they really love to give away leads, don't they?
I'd also say too that their center back partnerships are just so like interesting, right? Like Levi Colwill is playing a lot. I don't think he's that great, right? You look at how much they've invested in that position. Of course, Wesley Fofana, he did so many great things for Leicester, but he cannot stay healthy. He has another ACL injury, I believe, so he's gone for the season. And then you look at somebody like Badia Shiel, who's like this really, promising talent, but anytime I see him play, he's not doing well. Really, their most consistent guy, believe it or not, is probably Tosin, which they signed on a free. So for the amount of money they've spent on their center backs, I don't think they're getting great production. And so, yeah, I think, but it kind of goes back to, I do think they do have a ton of talent. When they're clicking, they are really clicking because you can see it. But I think they're losing some production from guys like Madueke. Nicholas Jackson is as hot as cold as a striker as you can get when it comes to that team. And a guy like that I love that I just don't think they've probably used as effectively as Christopher Nkunku. So it's just, I think they are a team that also too, Enzo's got an inflated squad. They're playing Trevor Chalobah just, due to injuries, right? They recalled him, how embarrassing they, treated him with the whole Palace loan and bringing him back. But they're playing him at center back. So I think they're facing injuries, but at the same time, I don't think that's an excuse for just kind of how poor their form has been. They have dropped quite significantly from what they were doing.
Well, with Chalobah too. And after that, I want to get to City and Cole. I'm going to go to you. But with that is, you think of that Chalobah callback, like the way that those players were so just cast off, that Maresca was like, I've got my 25 guys. The rest of you all can fuck off. Just be gone. And then you're like, well, I guess we kind of need you now because we're getting a little weak in the back here. So sure. Yeah. Hey, how about you come back and play? I also wonder with Chelsea too. And like I said, then we're going to direct towards more City. It's, you think of the guys that they have, like you've already mentioned a couple, and then there's still, Jadon Sancho and Neto. And they're so, even with them streamlining their team, there's still a fuck ton of people that they need to try to figure into this puzzle that is this team. And I still think they're figuring it out, and that they were running on really just raw talent at the start of the year. And now they're getting teams that are going, very much like Everton did, which is like, fuck you, we dare you to score. We dare you. And they couldn't do it. Now, Cole, with City, it just kind of the same way I've just talked about Chelsea. Is it as easy as like Phil Foden's finally playing well, so now City's playing well? Is it? I mean, you don't want it to be that answer, but it just kind of feels like that's the answer.
I don't think that's the answer. I mean, are they playing well? Yes. Do I feel like the city of old, as it were, is, resurrecting like a phoenix? No, I don't get that feeling at all. I feel like there were definitely times when they struggled. There were definitely times when, like I said, they were just hammering at the net, like, just trying to create chances and got chances and couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Like they're also relying very heavily on the fact that, oh, we're just talented and we're City and we're gonna score. No, the fuck you're not. No, the fuck you're not.
Yeah, well, that
So
was certainly the problem there in December for them when they completely fell apart. But then, of course, the other thing too is somehow this team that seems to be more Teflon than our current president is the ability to just not get in trouble. They spent a fuck ton of money already in January. Nobody thinks anything of it, but both the signings that they made were expensive. And it's just like, this is a team that's on the verge of not making Champions League. Now they're back in a Champions League spot currently, but they were on the verge of not being there. They're also on the verge of being eliminated from the Champions League as a whole. This next week, they have to win and they need help is the other thing for them too. You forget that they're just able to reload like that and change everything. And it's this deck that's kind of stacked against the rest of the league that they're just able to print money. And then the league, frankly, Sean, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, just doesn't seem to have the courage to actually go after them. And I feel like them saying we're going to do these charges, we're going to do. I don't think they're biding their time to make sure they have a good case. I think they're biding their time to hope it goes away.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to hear the results of the next presidency for the United States before you hear the, charges for City, right? I mean, at this point, it's just like, would it happen? It happens, right? Like, I'm not holding my breath whatsoever. In terms of City, though, I think a big miss for them has been John Stones. I feel like out of all their defenders, I don't really think Ruben Diaz is as great as he kind of once was. I think they've had a lot of shuffling in personnel. Rodri, of course, is the engine to that team. That's losing him, in the first half of essentially the season. And also Kevin De Bruyne has like barely played, right? So you look at kind of, I think, some key guys that unfortunately they rely on too heavily. But then at times, like these things happen, right? I mean, you see it kind of with Chelsea, like, starting to drift. City had that kind of, rough period, but the funny thing with them is it's just class is permanent, right? And I feel like they do have a ton of talent, and I do think that smart on them to get guys like Omar Marmoush and of course that young kid, the Uzbek kid, because at the end of the day, like those are going to be guys I think that can help at least revitalize some of the youth movement that they need, because they are kind of that team that is getting older, right? So they do have a lot of guys that have been there for a while, the Kyle Walkers of the world, who of course they just sold, right? So I think they do need a little bit of a youth movement. I think they've done a good job over the course of essentially the decade in Premier League. They dominated. But yeah, it's just, I think it's kind of one of those situations. I do agree with Nicole in the sense of like, you can't just like expect like, Holland to kind of go off and Foden to go off as like a long-term strategy. But I do think if they can get guys like John Stones healthy and Kevin De Bruyne healthy, it's going to help a lot.
All right. Final question. First to you, Sean. Do we think they're back?
Yeah. I do, but I also I caution to say there's a lot of good talent in that upper part of the table, right? So just because if they're playing well, I won't be surprised if, let's just say, and of course we'll talk about it, they lose to Arsenal, right? But that wouldn't, to me, that wouldn't be an insult on City. I think that would just be a good result, a really great win for Arsenal.
Cole, same question. Is City back?
I'm still on the fence. I would say no, not yet. To Sean's point, I do want to see how Marmoush and some of the other signings that they've done pan out, because, it's one thing to come into a, new team in um, in April. It's another thing entirely after the holidays. You know what I mean? And we'll see. I'm still on the fence. We'll see.
I can say this much: humility back in a big way. Next, we turn to a couple of shocking results, one at each end of the table. Bournemouth 5, Forest 0, Leicester 2, Spurs 1. This 5-0 game is not representative of what this game was. The first half was 1-0, and the game was tight. Forest had chances. It was not like they could not win this game. And then the second half, and holy shit, did the Cherries explode.
I don't know whether to be honestly and truly happy for Bournemouth or sad for Forest because my God, I think I'm still in shock. I think I'm still shook. Like the idea that, number one, um, Bournemouth pretty much nullified Gibbs White. Like I mean, just canceled him out, right? Like, oh, you thought you were gonna play some football today? Oh, that's cute. Like, no, you're not. I'm like to sit and watch that happen. I think, good for them, but holy shit, what the fuck is happening? Like, I still am having that, like, what the fuck is happening here?
A low-key addition to Bournemouth that came on last year and is really paying dividends now is the American Tyler Adams. He's very good at uglying up a game. And it's one of those guys you're like, oh, you play CONCACAF. We could tell you live in the world of bullshit with all the teams in CONCACAF. And you could just kind of tell he's got that little bit of rough edge to him. And he knows how to find the player on the other team and just go, nah, I'm going to fuck with your world today. Wouldn't you think, Sean?
Oh yeah, I mean Tyler Adams, and I'm just so happy to see him healthy again. Right, it's a blessing not only for Bournemouth, but it's a blessing for the U.S. national team because, of course, I'm a Red Bulls fan, so I have a soft spot for him as well. The amount of years and him doing well in that system. But yeah, it's just I think the funny thing with Bournemouth too, and of course the next game is a kind of an interesting comparison. They have almost a good portion of their first team injured. I believe it's 10 injuries, right? So the fact that they're kind of doing this also too without a traditional striker.
Evan Nielsen hurt.
Evan Nielsen and Anu Sunal, within
hurt.
48 hours, like essentially season enders, right?
So racks off 2 hat tricks. Tara gets a hat trick this game.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, fuck it. We'll score goals. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
What was interesting though, in just looking at that first goal, right, where Justin Kluivert has that beautiful shot, it was almost a precursor to why Forest was backing off kind of as much as they were. And I don't know if they were fearful of just the threat of their midfield kind of going after them, but it was one of those games that I agree with Nicole, like it wasn't like that far off in terms of like the chances. But it was, I mean, Dango Atara's goal, like he looked like Michael Jordan, just like, you take a picture of the header. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo like would be proud of just how well he got up there. Not the guy you'd expect to do a hat trick. Good, nifty player Otara is. And of course, Anton Semenyo, he has to find his way on the score sheet. Just a player that has done so well for Areola. Incredible story. I wanted Everton to hire Areola 2 years ago from Rio, but he has done such a great job there. Interesting personality too. Anytime you want to kind of look at his interviews, he comes off as such a casual, just soft-spoken type of individual. But the way his team, it's rock and roll football, man. Like it is just kind of back and forth. So much, and what Bournemouth did is kind of a real blueprint to any Premier League team that kind of buy young talent, find a manager that could really develop and cultivate them. And it's interesting, right? Because they're going to go into the summer. They probably, in my opinion, will make a European place, whether it be kind of Conference League, Europa League. And they can have an air raid just in regards to there's so much talent there that other teams can buy, as well as Areola potentially. But I have a feeling just, with how great that the ownership is with Mick Foley and Bill Foley, sorry, and just the story that they are kind of creating within the Premier League as well as Bournemouth. Just really, really happy for them. Forest, I mean, it's a tough day at the office, but they've had such a great season, right? These things happen. Like it's not. I'm sure they'll get back to it, but they have been overperforming. You look at the numbers; they have. But I will say this: they're effective, right? They have a style. it's been working. Bournemouth have a style. It's been working. So, you look at the managers, they're doing both of them.
Nuno as fuck. That is exactly what they are.
Yeah. They are Nuno as hell.
We are going to sit back and we are going to let you do whatever you want to do. And the next thing you know, you're going to wonder why you're picking up the ball out of the back of your own net. That is what they've done all season. And the key thing you hinted at something I wanted to ask was, do we think Bournemouth is a team that's going to make Europe? Nicole, since Sean's already answered it, what do you think?
I think absolutely. I don't know that I would have answered that way in the beginning of the season, but I think absolutely they will.
I was ready for this team to slip when they lost the two strikers. Like you said, Sean, it was in a 48-hour period. I jokingly was like, well, we got Calvert-Lewin to sell you.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be out of contract. Let's get a couple quid for him. And they're like, nah, it's fine. Somebody else will score. And it's it. And they're scoring, like, you think about that. They just won 4-1 over Newcastle and now 5-0 over Forest. That is 9 goals against 2 teams that are in the top 6, that are battling with them for Europe, that are directly in competition with them for Europe. And they handed them their asses. And let's not look past the fact, like, they get Liverpool next week at the Vitality. Liverpool needs to be fucking scared. They beat City in that building. They beat Arsenal in that building. What's going to stop them from beating Liverpool? They can. They absolutely can. They are playing completely fearless. They are playing their style of football, and they don't fucking care how you play them. A perfect example was the start of the season with us when we played them at Goodison. They played like dog shit. They turned it on for 10 minutes and they beat us 3-2, and they deserved to. Like, when they turned it on, they deserved it. And it's just, as a neutral, they have been a very, very fun team to watch this season, without a doubt. Right, guys?
And I mean, we've said it here multiple times before. And I think for Bournemouth, it is even more true. Time of possession does not equal winning a match. Balls in the back of the net equal winning the match. And I think like you said, for them, they can turn it on and they can score those goals. And they don't have to have the ball the entire match in order to do that. And yeah, I think that to me has been really, really fun. Again, as you know, a noob in the EPL world, it has been really interesting to see how they've just changed up the game on a lot of teams.
Yeah, Sean, I know it was a gut punch for us to lose that game, but were you weren't surprised that they did it, were you? I wasn't. They turned it on. I was like, oh, we're fucked.
No, well, it's so sad, right? Because that was like the best we probably played under Deitch in like forever, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just like that was the football that if you were kind of looking at the rest of the season, you're like, oh, I can get behind this. Like, this is great. And I mean, they just took advantage of actually using the substitute windows, crazy concept, right? And then also too, taking advantage of personnel that, for us is just defensively deficient, right? And so they obviously understood. And I mean, Iriola did say after that game, we did not deserve to win that game. They did because they obviously, took advantage of chances that we didn't. And essentially, we could have put that game long away beforehand, but we didn't. So yeah, but yeah, to kind of echo the point, I mean, this is a football fan's dream, right? Like, I mean, you look at, like, imagine Everton in this situation, right? Like they have no pressure whatsoever. Even if they don't make Europe, it's a great story, right? It's a great season. At minimum, they're probably top half finish. At best, they're probably looking at a 5th, 6th place finish. Of course, as the other teams are starting to build, but what they've done is they've really built themselves a good cushion that even if they go on a little bit of a blip, they still will be in contention. And I think they're still going to have a lot to play for. So yeah, Liverpool should be nervous. And they're going to go in that game, to your point, with no fear whatsoever. Because if they lose, it's not a big deal. Like, it's fine.
They're going to take it right to them. That is for damn sure. And it's the other thing to keep in mind too is with the way that Europe has been changed with Champions League and Europa, and we call it the McRib Cup here, the Conference League. That's our affectionate name for it. Or the McRib is 10th place can get into Europe now, depending on how well our teams are doing in Europe. And other than City, they're all advancing. Every single, I mean, even United and Spurs are advancing in Europe. Like every single team is advancing with the exception of City, and City could still advance as well. So, like I said, you could find us in a scenario where 10th place goes, especially if FA Cup and League Cup get won by teams that are already in Europe. So it's very likely. There's Spursy, and then there's fucking this. I get they're hurt, okay? Newcastle was just as badly hurt last year, and they seem to manage to stay in the top half of the table and be in the discussion for Europe at the end. This team is fucking... This was a 6-pointer. This was a relegation 6-pointer. That's where they are. They're 8 points away from the drop. A couple of more results like this, and they're in the discussion for relegation. Do I think they're going to be there? No, but fuck me. Are they playing just absolutely horrible? And I'm here for it. Are you, Nicole?
I am a little bit. This was one of the matches where I decided I was like, I'll just watch the highlights because it was so. Number one, I was not expecting this result. Like I'm like it's Leicester. Right.
Leicester is fucking dog shit. I'm sorry. Leicester is really bad. They're not a good team. They have a horrible central defense. Horrible.
BX Gunner in the chat says the Vardy party continues.
Oh god. I mean, I had nothing to expect out of this except for a Spurs win. And they pretty much decided, nope, we're not going to win today. Like they decided that. It was their match to lose, and they decided to lose it.
Sean, what was interesting about it? It was just they played fine in the first half. They played well enough to win. And then they fucked it off in literally 3 minutes. In 3 minutes, they completely fucked it off at the start of the second half.
Yeah, I mean, if you missed your physical, just go to Dr. Tottenham and they'll patch you right up. I mean, they're giving points out for fun, right? I mean, you look at they probably lick their lips looking at the schedule of playing essentially Wolves, Leicester, and Everton, right? And to only come out with a point out of those 9 is crazy. I do agree with you. I think they played fine. They had a good response in the first half. I thought they played well, hit the crossbar, right? I think Stolarczyk has done really well for Leicester in goal, even though the numbers won't say that. So they can feel good. But yeah, it just I understand they're limited on personnel, but as I just kind of mentioned with Bournemouth missing essentially like 9 or 10 players, like you can only use that excuse for so long, right? Like we're not expecting you to beat Chelsea. We're not expecting you to beat Bournemouth. But like Leicester at home is like as kind of like guaranteed that also they lost 7 straight, right? Yeah, like they have had so much internal strife. Some of the stuff that's come out with like, Ruud van Nistelrooy just like losing the locker room and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Of course, we don't know what's true and what's not, right? So, but just the idea that like you are just essentially just kind of giving the game away, right? Like you're letting Bobby De Corredora read, like essentially a guy that somehow always does well with Everton, but like has really just, he's kind of just a cast off of sorts. Right. Yeah. And I love that Jamie Vardy essentially pointed to the Premier League badge and said, yeah, you don't have this, right? Like, and I will say one player that I really like out of them, and I'm worried about next week, is Bilal El-Khanous. He's a really young kind of central attacking mid. Scores that great goal, but he is a creative player, does a lot of good for them. To your point, though, it's like, I understand your defense is kind of, and you're playing 2 kids in the midfield, but that attack is still lethal. Like, I mean, and Leicester's defense, I agree with you. Like, it is shambolic. Like, James Justin is not the player he was. Like, without he is an embarrassment. And Yannick Vestergaard is okay, but that's not really a compliment, right? And then you get to Christensen, who, Bologna made Champions League last year and they didn't want him. So it's just like, to me, it's such a horrible result for Ange. It is one of those situations that he is so fortunate that he still is in that cup competition, because if he wasn't, he'd be gone.
That's what I was going to hint at. But real context, quick context for you here, Sean. My co-host Sam actively hates Wout Face. I mean,
oh yeah,
he will take time out of this show to talk about how dog shit Wout Face is. I mean, just he has the notes. He is like 50 Cent on Diddy. He has the notes. He is ready to talk the shit. He has the time, and he makes the time. And I mean, Connor Cody's long in the tooth, but for fuck's sakes, I'd put him on the pitch before I'd put Wout Face on.
But they have Caleb Okoli. Like, they have this, $15 million center back that they bought from Atalanta, right? Like, and it's just like, also too, I believe he's out of contract in the summer. So like, why are you playing this guy? Like, like he doesn't want to re-sign with you guys, which I think is actually a blessing to Leicester. Yeah. So it's just like, to me, I don't understand why Ruud is playing him. I understand they've kind of, between him and Okoli, reportedly there's been some issues, but like at the end of the day, like, I mean, take a page out of Everton, play your best players on the pitch. It helps.
Right.
It really does.
Exactly.
Like,
it's amazing what happens when you play the people you signed in the summer to play on your team. It's like, maybe the front office knows what they're doing. Maybe the director of football, I don't know something about fucking football. Like, let them do their job. And if they give you the pieces, use them. That is how modern sports work. All modern sports now work that way. You have people in the front office who assess talent and give you the talent for the culture you want to create at your club. You as a coach is to take that talent and to work it into your system. End of discussion. That's what it is. And that's a lot of why Dyche isn't here anymore at Everton, because he just didn't want to fucking use anybody. And we're playing a guy out of fucking position, and he's playing gangbuster right now. But we'll get to that in a moment. You hinted at it. We talked about it last week, but I think it bears repeating. Cole, the general concession is we all think the only reason why Big Ange has his job is because he's in a League Cup semifinal, and if they lose that one to Liverpool, he doesn't have a job anymore. What do you think?
I think he probably will still have a job. And I know that sounds weird, but hear me out.
Give him the excuse for the injured players.
Give him the excuse for the injured players. Is it a good excuse? No. But is it a Tottenham excuse? Yes.
Yeah.
I think also it really does depend on how they do in the cup.
Right.
And I don't think that, knowing the precarious position he's in, that is something that it's a calculated risk, but it's going to be a focus, right? Definitely going to focus on doing everything that you can to make sure that does not fall. So yeah, I think just conniving enough, again, it's not, not any good way, he's going to keep his job. This is all like you strategically putting your team down shit's creek so that you can keep your job. Like, is it bullshit? Yes. Is he going to keep his job? Yeah, probably. Just conniving enough.
I keep going back to this. Newcastle managed to do well last year, and they did it with 3.5 fucking players. Rounding out the rest of the league, and so that happened. Everton 1, Brighton 0, Newcastle 3, Southampton 1, Liverpool 4, Ipswich 1, Arsenal 1, Wolverhampton 0, Brentford 2, Palace 1, Villa 1, West Ham 1, Manchester United. I guess they aren't the worst team in the history of Manchester United. Fulham 0. Everton Football Club and Brighton Hove Albion played a professional match in the English Premier League this weekend. Really, the conversation piece is the penalty, right? And give it up to Veltman. I thought he did a perfect dig to save the ball. Oh, wait, we're not talking about volleyball. We're talking about football. And he clearly, and it's clear as day. Give it up, Sean. I think you took great appreciation in the VAR check.
Oh yeah, I mean the fact that like essentially these two fans were given the ref or trying to offer the ref 5 to 10 quid, right? To basically say, hey, don't look at the monitor, right? Like it's not correct. It is interesting. I feel like Veltman slapped that ball like Deitch slapped Patterson in Portugal, right? Like I mean, it was kind of like that perfect like hit, like, and of course Beto like kind of nudged him perfectly. But yeah, it was funny, right? Because as we were talking before, like 11 minutes of the highlights, right? 3 to 4 minutes is essentially just the penalty, as well as just the lineup previews. Yeah, just kind of a game. I feel like of just it was an ugly watch, but a very high character performance. I would say from the team, especially too with the injuries that we had. Really unfortunate, just because I think both of them are going to be long term. But
misses.
yeah, exactly. It's very Everton that in the sense of Dominic Calvert-Lewin finally scores a goal. Looks like he's going to kind of get behind David Moyes and be able to kind of really play that style. And then, yeah, his hamstring goes out, as well as Mangala looked great yet as well. But
I mentioned last week, I was like, you know what? Moyes is going to get 8 goals out of Calvert-Lewin. And now he's not going to get any because he's probably done, or at least he's done for 2 months. If it's a hammy, he's done for 2 months.
Yeah, but that game was like a WWE SmackDown. Beto just sliding into the keeper. Like you just like there were just so many like plays where it was just like I mean, we went through it on our podcast, but like the amount of clearances Tark and JB had and Jake O'Brien, it was just it truly felt like it was one of those where it was as much of a Deitch performance, but you just felt like there was much more positivity and progression, even as ugly as it was.
I would debate it wasn't a Deitch performance. It was an old school Moyes performance.
Yeah.
It's what it was. When we think of those old school Moyes days, that's exactly what it was. It was to coin a phrase that I know one of your co-hosts really loves. It was a spirited win. No, it was a gut check. It was a gut check. It was you were down to 10 men. Everything wasn't going your way. You had multiple players get injured, and you got a goal that. Yes, it was a penalty, but you probably didn't deserve to be in the lead, but you figured out a way to get the win. I am loving the evil era for Njai. My personal favorite is Jamie Vardy points at the patch for the champion and goes, "We have 1, you have 0." Does not get a yellow card. And then Njai does the seagull dance, or as I like to say, he did.
Get my way downtown, walking fast. I'm a seagull. Go fuck yourself.
And he gets a yellow card for doing a seagull dance and taunting the crowd. I'm like, Jamie Vardy, forgive me, call him by his Christian name. Jamie fucking Vardy does that every single time he scores a goal. He runs away from the visiting fans to find the home fans of the other team and mock them as he runs down the sidelines. And he never gets a yellow. And Jai just does a little bird wave. It's like, yellow card. You're like, okay, I see how this is going to go.
Yeah, and I guess the ref was a bird watcher. That's really kind of the only, explanation for that. But yeah, to your point, it was just, I mean, I loved Njai doing it, right? Like he's in his villain era, and like it was just great. But then also too, just the scenes after the game, the players hugging Moyes, right? Like Ghana, like that was just so heartfelt. But then 5 seconds later, there's a fight breaking out, like for no reason, like whatsoever. I don't understand why Brighton was so mad that day. Like, like it just made zero sense. You're playing against a 10-man Everton team. Like you can say whatever, we parked the bus or whatnot. You couldn't exploit it. Like you barely had any good chances on net. Yeah, it was quite embarrassing from them because, I do think highly of Brighton. I think they've done so many good things well. But I think that was a real moment of frustration where they probably thought they had 3 points in the bag. But to your point, we find a way at the Amex almost every time.
Yeah, they have not beat us at their stadium since 2019. And it's why I took them in my bet, and we'll get on to that too. But it's what it is. And fucking Brighton was just big mad. They were so big mad. They had all kinds of feelings. But the simple fact of the matter is, and we're going to move on to the next matches. They have not been good at home this year. They haven't been. They have dropped a ton of points, and they know how to beat the right teams at the right time, but then they fuck it off against teams that they should be beating. And that's the reason why they're going to end up outside of Europe unless I see them as being the 10th place team that maybe gets into Europe because we do so well. We get 10 teams into Europe. But other than that, they're only going to have themselves to blame. They really are, because they underperform against teams they should absolutely be beating, and they underperform against those teams at home. So at the end of the day, you can only look at yourself in the mirror for that one. Oh, Southampton scored a goal first. Hey, Cole, that's a bright spot, right? The Saints score. No,
that's not a bright spot at all. No.
Yeah, because then Isaac does what Isaac does, which is just fucking scoring goals.
It was more like a drug deal, First one's free.
He has scored more goals than Southampton has. He has by himself.
Individually, yeah.
Individually.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a lot about Newcastle lately because we did have a Newcastle supporter on, so I'm not going to really dive into him too much. And I would like, one of our regular watchers, Shore Billy, we've chatted with him a bunch too. So we're going to kind of divert away from them and spend a little more time here on Southampton. Brought this question up last week to Danny, our Wolves supporter, and I bring it up to both of you. First, Sean, and then you, Nicole. They're at 6 points. There's 16 games left. Are they in danger of being Derby County and being the worst point scoring team in Premier League history?
I personally don't think so. I think, funny enough, they play Ipswich this weekend, right? So that is as good of an opportunity as you can get, right, to get some points on the board. Even if they get a draw, right, they're at 7, and then to your point, 4 points out of the next 15. I know they haven't gotten any points under Ivan Juric.
It's at Ipswich.
I know.
Ipswich doesn't play bad there. They don't.
They don't. And I think he unfortunately has a real tall task at his hand with that central defense. It's incredibly porous. It is funny because I know we talked about it. They have some pretty good young talent, right? Like even somebody like Kyle Walker-Peters, right? That is kind of a target for EPL teams going into the summer if he doesn't get sold now, right? Like he's a good right back. Like Tyler Dibbling is a guy that many teams want. Even guys like Adam Armstrong, and so there are guys on that team that like I feel like, and even I can't believe I'm saying this, they have Aaron Ramsdale, right? Like it's like I mean I think he's injured, but yeah. I actually think that they do get a result this weekend. I think it's a shocker for me saying that. But I don't think it's a win. I think they get a draw. But I do think they claw enough points to get to past Derby. If they don't, that is just a bad sign. It is, of course, very Everton-esque that we gave them half their point total right now.
Yeah. And a smash and grab in their own building.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Beto smashed the bar and they smashed us. So, yeah. But no, I don't think they're in any danger of that. I just think they're talented enough to get past that. I don't think they're talented enough to have the great escape.
Yeah. Cole, what do you think?
I think they are, unfortunately, as you pointed out earlier, and I do feel some kind of way about this as a Villa supporter. Like Ipswich does well at home.
Yeah, they do.
And I mean, if they don't get a draw, coming up, I don't think they're going to come back. The rest of their schedule is pretty challenging. I don't think they're gonna. I mean,
most of the bad teams they're playing, or bottom half teams they're playing them they're playing them away from their building.
Mm-hmm.
They come to us. They ain't gonna beat us. They're not the way we're constructed now. They're not going to beat us in our building. They're not. Come on, optimism train. I don't need you making smirks over there. Like, come on. I know it's the most Everton that thing ever, but they don't have Ward Prowse anymore to fuck with us and score set pieces. So
that's true. Yeah. And funny enough, we've actually done outside of them. We've done well against the lower teams this year. We beat Wolves. Yeah. We beat Ipswich, and then we drew Leicester. Yeah.
We drew Leicester. We beat Ipswich. We lost to Southampton. And then we beat Wolves. And then we get Leicester.
We beat Palace, So, yeah, I mean, and we drew against West Ham, right? So it's like we actually, outside of Southampton, which is very Everton, that.
I said, I don't see this team as being epically bad. That Derby County team was real bad. Like, I honestly feel Leicester is a worse team than Southampton as far as overall construction goes. They're just better built for the Premier League. They're not well built for the Premier League. I think they're dead on to go down as well. I know they're safe right now, but I think that they'll ultimately go down because Wolves' schedule gets a lot fucking easier in March. A lot easier. And down the stretch is when you need to have the easy schedule, not the hard schedule. And this team is young and it's talented, and it was the wrong guy doing the wrong system at the wrong time to start the year. And Russell Martin may be a very good coach, and he may be a very good coach in the Premier League eventually. He's innovative in the way that he does things, but it was the wrong team at the wrong time to do that this year with Southampton, and they've just been destroyed. And you can't expect the kids to recover from it. You simply can't. And it's I'm looking at it each week, and I'm just trying to figure out who are they going to beat. Who are they going to get points against? Because I don't see who they're going to get points against, because they're epically bad as far as goals for and goals against. Goals for, they're the worst in the league. We're the second worst in the league. But the thing we have going for us is we're the sixth best defense in the league. They're the second worst defense behind Wolves. And at least Wolves scores goals. Like, at least Wolves could score. Southampton can't score. It just, I've gone on too much. Next game. It could have been 6 at the half for Liverpool. It really could have been. And I'm surprised it wasn't. Liverpool came out gangbusters, professional, ready to rock and roll against Ipswich. What'd you say, Cole?
Yeah, I feel, actually, no. It's not again. This one, I actually do feel bad for Ipswich. It's not like the Forest match where, it easily could have been
right.
Bad. But this one, I definitely feel bad for Ipswich because, they drew us. Like,
yeah.
This is not the same team week to week. You can see where they are. You can see where they are improving in some matches, and you can see that aggressive fire, the entirety of the match. They'll be doing like those quick passes to set up chances further down the pitch. Like, they're playing chess to a certain degree, like within the context of top 6 teams, and then they show up and poor little Ting Ting, and I don't know what to say about this.
Oh, you're good. Shan, with Ipswich, you can say they're playing with house money, but what I fear for them is the same thing that I currently fear for Luton, who, I know people don't know about it on our main show here, but when we do our championship show, we talk about the rest of the football league. Luton's currently in second to last in the championship because them and a team like Ipswich aren't like your normal yo-yo clubs. They're not like Norwich. They're not like West Brom. They're not like Sheffield, who know we're going up. We're probably going right back down. We'll be fine. And we'll be right in the hunt the next year after that. This team, they're playing well. They're doing the best they can, but they don't have the level to be in the Premier League. And what you wonder is I fear, and I wonder if you do too, Sean, if they overextend themselves too much now, lose good talent, and then find themselves dropping all the way back down to League One where they were just 3 seasons ago.
I don't have that fear for them because I think Kieran McKenna is a lot better manager than Rob Edwards is. I think he's kind of one of those up and comers that you can expect to maybe see at a bigger club and down the line.
Somebody signed McKenna over the summer. Did they lose him? If they lose him, then you really need to be worried about them.
Yeah, I think, but I also think too they've actually spent a lot of money on like Luton, like where they've really bought some good talent. Like you think of Omari Hutchinson, Liam Delap, and even this window they're buying like Jaden Philogene, Julio Enciso on loan. So they have been incredibly aggressive, I would say. I think one thing that has really helped them is they made a goalkeeping change. I think Muric was horrific for them. And like, I mean, I think that guy, you want to talk about betting at the end of the show. I think that guy has, thrown a few matches himself just because of some of the performances he's had. So I think for them, whether they stay in the Premier League or not, I don't think it's a given that they're out because, we'll get to it later with Wolves. I have my opinions on them. But I think they look at these type of games as like a tax write-off. Like I don't think they care about like the Liverpool away. Like why, like put too much into that resource. Same with City. The games that they're going to get are middle of the table, right? Like the Fulhams, they'll have chances against Villa and of course against Chelsea. That's a game that they got up for. And, they are going to find teams at the right times and they're going to get results. I think where it's going to come for them, whether they stay or go, is if they can get the maximum out of the 6-pointers, right? Like if they can find a way to beat Wolves again, right? Because they did beat Wolves at their place. If they could beat Leicester, if they could beat us, like they're probably gonna stay. So I don't think it's in any way, shape, or form a given. But even if they go down, I don't see them being a Luton. But I would agree with you. They could be a lurker. So
Now, one thing to mention for Liverpool, I mean, everyone's scoring goals now. Everyone's scoring goals. They're a well-oiled machine, and frankly, City potentially being back could throw a monkey wrench into things because it comes down to who do you drop points to and who chasing you, essentially Arsenal, who do they get points against? And most of what Arsenal has left against big clubs is in their building. Most of what Liverpool has left against big clubs is at the other team's building. And that could be big. But the little dumb thing that I wanted to point out that if I'm Liverpool, I'm really drilling this home during training sessions to give up a really shitty, easy corner kick goal at the end of the match. I would be sitting there and just playing highlights of Arsenal corner kicks and going, they do this for fun. They're going to put 4 on you if you defend the way you did against Ipswich on that corner kick. They're going to put 4 on you. So I think there's a little motivation in there for Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think they are in a little bit of cruise control right now, right? Like they are really fortunate that like the Arsenals, the Chelseas, the Cities, right, have kind of had this really like roller coaster season. I don't see them losing the title, but I do see that if they have an injury or two, right, that kind of makes things a little bit interesting. And Liverpool always kind of finds a way to have some guys injured, right? But I think to your point, their back line is still not great. Like, so I think if, and even I know you guys talked about it in the last pod, like they should have lost to Forest again. Like, it's just, they are getting away with some results. Like they aren't on the greatest run of form, right? I know the Ipswich game was what it was, but like at the end of the day, that's kind of, you expect stuff like that to happen. I mean, even like the Merseyside Derby, right? I'm not trying to be biased, but like that's a game that like has always kind of just been weird, right? So yeah, you just never know. I do think they'll be okay in terms of the title. I hate saying that, but I think injuries can really derail them. And it only takes like, we talk about it in relegation, but you get a few wins in a row, you really feel good about yourself, and you look at the table. If you can reach it, right? If you feel like the opportunity's there, that can give you the motivation and really the potential. There's still so much season left, right? So there's still so much to go. it just does feel like they've done a good job of building a good lead.
So, Cole, last time we had you on, I had brought up the question, and I still tend to agree with your thought process from back then, which was, do we think Liverpool's already won the league? And my answer was yes. And you agreed. You were like, yeah, I think they have. Hiram debated otherwise, but I think that's because at the time he thought Chelsea might still actually have a chance. But what do you think? Is it theirs to lose? Do we think that Liverpool's got this wrapped up?
I definitely think it's theirs to lose if they keep playing how they have been, right? And it has been pretty consistent. I think I think it's theirs. The things that I think are going to kind of again put blood in the water, so to speak, is Forest also getting their shit together and getting more wins and getting that sense of no, we're gonna come for number two, and if we come for number two, then we come for number one. Like,
and City's starting to seemingly get it together as well. Now, I will say the great equalizer, and Shan, you'll appreciate this, is Liverpool has lost the league at Goodison Park twice. So could happen a third time. That would just be darling. But talking about the other team that's in the hunt with Arsenal, we're all in agreement that is about the softest red card of all fucking red cards, right? Like that was so like the spikes were there, but was it really intentional? Was it really high? Like, don't give the referee a decision to make, but man, was that soft.
The only thing that was softer is their fan base for giving the death threats to Michael Oliver. Like Arsenal's fan base, you come on, guys. Like this is ridiculous. Like I totally agree with you, Sam. Like that was probably one of the worst red cards. And Michael Oliver, shame on him in regards to like, especially too, you have VAR at your disposal, right? Like it's like, how do you how does just that not get reduced to a yellow?
Right.
Like
look at the screen, and it would be a yellow.
Yeah.
It's all, and he even looked at the screen. He just went, heard what I wanted to hear. Red card stands.
Yeah. It made zero sense to me. But once again, Wolves find themselves in a situation where they're up a man and they lose a game. This is not the first time they've done it. I think for them, great win for Arsenal, right? Like, I know, there's been kind of some stones thrown at like Declan Rice for being like, oh, we've overcame so much adversity. I mean, you guys, you overcame a little bit of adversity. It was a good win. And it ended up being 10-10, right? Because João Gomez ended up getting a red, which it should have been a straight red. And that's one where like Wolves are really lucky. Because if that was a straight red, they're going to lose him for 3 games, right? And he is as much of an engine as Cunha is to that team, right? Like, you talk about kind of Wolves Nation. They love João Gomez. I think he kind of really embodies effort and like anything, the guy that you want in a relegation fight. And so they'll lose him next week.
You want in the middle of the pitch.
Yeah. So I know Nicole's probably happy that he's not playing against Villa this upcoming week because he's going to be a big loss. But yeah. Good result for Arsenal, and just very interesting time for Wolves. I don't know, Sam, if you've kind of paid attention to the whole reporter fiasco with Cunha, but just like so if people don't know, essentially Liam Keane, a guy that reports for Wolves, basically kind of reported that Cunha just walked straight down the tunnel and didn't acknowledge the fans. And Cunha, who hasn't tweeted for months, essentially says, shame on you. You're a liar. Don't ever ask me to, basically, don't ever ask me to do an interview again. So really good times right now for Wolves. And I'm enjoying it. So
Cole, that was, Shan hinted at it, but I wanted to get your opinion too. It's like, if that's a red card on Arsenal, that was the exact same foul, like the same spot, the same amount of foot. Like, so, and if anything, there was a little more intention out of Gomez's foul than there was in Kelly's foul. Like, were you surprised to just be like, why wasn't that a straight red?
there was a lot more intention. I mean, just out on the pitch doing kung fu fighting. They definitely, I feel like Gomez should have been a straight red. It should have been straight red, 3 games. That's it.
We talked a ton about Wolves last week with Danny on the show, so I'm going to refrain from that and keep it moving so we can get these last 3 games done. Brentford and Crystal Palace was a really fucking entertaining match that nobody watched except for Brentford and Palace fans. Like, it was a really good game. It was a really, really good game. Don't you think, Cole?
I didn't watch it. I have no idea.
It was really fun. It just I am now looking forward to the mouthful Sean that will be SA to Eze, because let's make it just really difficult to figure out who the hell's on the pitch.
Yeah, it was if you could see the game, Sam, because I mean the amount of rain that was kind of coming down that day, like just like even looking at the highlights, right? Like the fog. Of course, the penalty fiasco was one where it was just like, what a weird situation. I will say you could see Will Hughes bright and clear, right? So that was a guy that you'll never not be able to see.
Everybody can see Casper.
Everyone can see. Yeah, I can see Will Hughes from here. So, but no, it's just SA's first touch, right? A goal. One thing that's interesting, right? And I kind of thought about it, like, what is the purpose of Eddie Nketiah? Like, because he really just has not kicked off there, hasn't scored a goal in the Premier League, right? And it's just interesting because I don't think he's gonna ever play the number 9 because Mateta has been so good for them. Yeah, and Glasner's a great coach, so I have no issues in kind of the man management there. But I kind of a precarious signing when you look at it, and of course Ismaila Sarr coming on and doing really well for them. But yeah, just tough result for Palace, but they have been such a consistent engine of a team the last month or two. Kind of like Brighton in the sense of like I don't think their home form's great, but they're on the road. They're just warriors. So I'm kind of excited in a few weeks to play them at their place rather than ours because, yeah, they haven't been playing that great at home.
Yeah, precisely. They're a team that I think ultimately is going to be a bit of a disappointment simply because of how well they did last season. And Elise is a big miss, but they did get good pieces signed on, and they had Decore healthy finally to kind of anchor the midfield, and they've just they started so piss poorly. They really had such a just absolute terrible start to the season, and they're probably going to finish in 12th like they always do, and you can't help but look at it and go, yeah, but we finished in 10th last year. We should have been in the discussion for Europe this year. We should have been a better team. Don't you think, Cole?
I think that it's fair to them to say that they should have been in the discussion, but I don't think that it's fair to say that they were overall a better team. I think that this team that they've got shows promise. I think once they get the rhythm and once they get everybody working the program together, because you can see that they're working the program, they're just not all working in sync.
Right.
Once they do that, I feel like then yes, this will be a better team. But I think right now they're not finishing.
Well, let's remember the key thing. They got a fine ass goalie, don't they, Cole? She's got a thing for dating.
I do.
Villa and West Ham. This match was chippy. Good Lord. This was the anybody touches me, I'm going to fall on the ground and I'm going to kick everybody like they owe me money. This was just a rough match to watch.
Oh, you mean the hockey match? Is that what you're referring to? I was watching hockey. I don't know what you were watching, but yeah, I feel like, in a way, it was to the detriment of Villa, right? Like we've already had some really significant injuries. We didn't need any more. Now we've got more, and to come away with a draw, like when there were chances. right? Like I felt like I could not accurately take a drink every single time they said, and it's Watkins up to the net, and then nothing
Yeah,
happened.
nothing.
Because I would be dead right now. I would have died of alcohol poisoning if I tried to do that. It
That
was
that Mings injury to
mm,
anyone that is not a Birmingham City supporter was a gut punch. Like, I mean, Sean, you and I are neutrals in this, and you see him go down, you're like, fuck, man, he just got back. Like, and he's a good dude, and he's a good captain, and he's a good player, and it's like an all around really fucking good dude, and you're just like, fuck, that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much what we feel with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, right? Like it's just, and of course, this season he's had a great bill of health. It's just unfortunate what happened on the weekend, but we had those same thoughts, right? And to your point, Tyrone Mings is a great humanitarian guy. Like he's just, you want to root for a guy like that. English, so of
Yeah.
course he kind of checks that box. But yeah, it's just, as a neutral watching that game, of course, I like Villa. I don't like West Ham, so I wanted Villa to kind of, really put it to them. But it was a game of two halves. Like and I hate to say it, like Villa kind of really showed what they were the first half, and West Ham, credit to Potter, he's done a good job so far. Because he doesn't have personnel there either. Jared Bowen's out, like so he's not really playing with a traditional striker. Danny Ings, the ghost of Danny Ings, sure. But like, yeah, they and I will say, not having Mavropanos in the lineup is a help for West Ham because he has just been abysmal this year.
No.
But yeah, they created chances, like, and their goal was really well taken. Like, so I think it's kind of one of those situations. Villa, unfortunately, right now they're kind of in a, what we were in the years ago, right? We were in Europe once, Sam. Remember that?
Oh, I remember.
Where where once you kind of get into a Champions League schedule, you're playing so many games at once, and they've had some injuries to some key guys like Pau Torres, right? He's a great ball playing center back. John McGinn has been out. So kind of key guys. John Duran had that great run of form. Then he gets a red card. So he's kind of being ingrained back into the place. They are making signings. So Daniel Mallon and guys, Leon Bailey, he's kind of on and off. So yeah, just kind of one of those situations. I think, unfortunately, Villa is almost having the Chelsea effect where I don't think they're playing badly in certain games, but I don't think they're getting the results.
Yeah, yeah. It's Cole. You know, I imagine it's exciting because you're doing well in Champions League, and let's face it, like you got a big game this week. It's Celtic at home. You win, you're definitely going into the automatic round of 16 because all the teams in front of you play each other or they play somebody really good. So there's four teams in front of you that are either 1 or 2 points ahead of you, and they all play each other. And you've got a team that's out in Celtic in your building. All you got to do is win. And that's got to be fun and exciting to know that you guys are doing so well in Champions League. And then you turn around and it's just like, why can't we put together a complete fucking game? Like, why? How can't we just not figure out, especially the two that I look at is this one, and I look at the Nottingham Forest loss, where all you need to do was see the thing out. The other team wasn't very inspirational. Like West Ham, until they got the light and kind of started to play into the second half, you could have easily taken them out of the match, and you just didn't. So how frustrating has that been as a supporter?
I mean, Sean and I were talking about it while we were, doing the sound check earlier. It's kind of like being a Washington sports fan. I'm used to this. But I mean, I am cautiously optimistic about champions, but again, with the injuries, I'm not, I'm a little more cautious than I was, a week ago, I'll say. And definitely with the um, giving the game away, like I feel like, just pulling up really, because you've got all of this momentum and you've got really good connections, and you are scoring. And then it's like the second half comes and you just pull up, you pump the brakes when you shouldn't. And I think most of Villa's goals that have been given up this season have been in the last 15 minutes of the match. And until they figure that part out, it's going to continue to happen.
Absolutely. Real quick, guys, you all don't even get to comment on this. Fulham was the better side. And let us not forget, this is the worst Manchester United club in the history of Manchester United, as per their manager.
Big set. Championship corner.
I've fallen and I can't get up. Oh no.
You going to give me the right one?
Sure money.
The beauty is, Sean, in post, none of this fucking happened. None of that just happened in post. It'll all sound great. Only on the live stream do you get to hear the tree fall in the forest. Oh, man. Mr. Graham, would it surprise you all to know that he yet again missed his fucking bet? He is now down $2,100. He's got a newborn fourth daughter, and he's not going to be able to pay for the eldest daughter's college because all the money's going to be gone. This is what he's going for this week: Everton over Leicester, Newcastle over Fulham, Ipswich or a draw with Southampton, Liverpool or a draw with Bournemouth. That is smart to throw the draw in there. And Palace or draw with United for plus 631 is what he is picking this week. And the Leicester bet better not be the part that fucks it up, because then I will be very, very angry. Myself, though, I'm a smart prognosticator, and I picked Everton to beat Brighton and had great odds of $484. So I am now up $1,323.
Big Sam's Lock of the Week.
Cole, did you know that 33.3% of the time it works 100% of the time?
I absolutely did.
Nothing but fucking winners with me, baby. I've won 4 of my last 5. I have been on fire lately. And he'd sit there and say, I'm making safe bets. I was taking road dogs and winning. And last week was a road dog and won. So he can piss off with that thought process. This week I'm going with 2. I'm going to go with Forest to rebound over Brighton. And I'm going to take Ipswich over Southampton for plus 378. Alrighty. That is going to wrap it up, boys and girls. As Sean had mentioned before, real quick, we got to give a shout out for a D-back. Our unofficial mascot of the show, Sean, is a pink bear head from Toy Story. And we call that the D-back bear. That's for don't be a cunt. So Arsenal fans, fucking D-back. Don't make threats against a fucking another human being. That's kind of really fucked up. Don't do that. Cole, any parting words, darling?
Yeah, just one. I would like to congratulate Naomi Girma on signing to Chelsea. I thought that was a really great opportunity for her, and I'm excited to see what comes to follow.
Yeah, get our women paid, man. And if our league can't pay for it, go over to Europe. Get fucking paid.
That's right.
Our women's team is one of the best in the world. And also, Europe has been catching up. So go play in Europe. Keep them in check. Know exactly who you're playing when you go into the next World Cup. Be ready to rock and roll. Could not agree more. It's great news. Mm-hmm. And, Sean, now's your time. Plug away. Just on a personal note for people who do not know, I am a listener. I was a listener of the original show, listener of this show. And I've always told people that listen to our show, we're not X's and O's. We are simply an overview of the entire league, and we're going to try to be silly while we do it. If you want to listen to X's and O's, find a pod that supports your team and listen to that and support the shit out of it. And that's what I know I do. So, Sean, take it away.
Yeah, and really appreciate the support, Sam. But yeah, just to plug our podcast, the Blue Frontier. It's run by myself, James Boyman, and Ryan Williams. We're all, devout Evertonians, and what we do is just provide a balanced, passionate, and analytical view on and off the pitch of Everton. Just really getting kind of into a lot of the weeds. We do post matches. We also do kind of transfer window analysis, and we're actually doing a lot more Premier League content in regards to kind of going forward. What we did this year, we did a Premier League preview and we made predictions, James and I, because at the end of the day, right, we play in the Premier League, so we want to know. And we did a really good deep dive into David Moyes. Looked at his time at West Ham, right, and kind of David Moyes 2.0, what to expect. So really appreciate any support. It's the Blue Frontier. You can find it on your major podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, you name it. And we also have a Discord. So yeah, if you feel that you want to tune in or be a part of the Discord, just basically comment on Twitter. We have a Twitter fan page, as well as my personal account at KingCon225. And yes, I am the optimism train, and I'm always going to be optimistic about Everton.
I have been optimistic with you, sir, forever on this show. Every single season for the last 4 seasons, I have looked at my co-host and my producer in the face and gone, we're fucking staying up. We're not going down. We are staying up. I've been bullish about it forever, and only good things for our future. Of course. Ryan Williams, famously on this show, the arch nemesis of my co-host, Mr. Samuel Graham. It's great. They are the biggest frenemies ever. It is so much fun to listen to them. And Shan, just know that right now in Columbia, Maryland, there is one man fist pumping and mule kicking because his worlds have collided. Our show and your show are talking at the same time. And one Mr. Alan Brody is tickled fucking pink. That is going to wrap it up. Next up is DU Does the EFL, where we're going to do a quick recap of the rest of English football. And then after that, we have Injury Time, which is a preview of all of the weekend's action. We talk about the beers that we've been drinking, our fantasy team, and we check in on our adopted club, Hibernian FC. Should somebody want to find Injury Time, producer Mel, how do they go about doing it?
Well, that's just simple. We got one great tier. It is dufootballshow.com/dufootballshow and sign up as a forward slash.
No. /.
What did I say?
You said dufootballshow.com/dufootball.
Words were just coming out of my mouth, and I'm like, not the correct words because I just started speaking when I heard my name.
Patreon.com//
Even better, those of you that are lazy fucks, just scroll on down because the link is wherever you're watching this now. I attach it to everything. So don't even bother typing. Typing is so boomer. Instead, just click on the link and give us your money.
I've got a lot going on over here. The producer Mel story. Till next week, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.